Welcome to Defiance of Silence. I'm Valerie, your host, a veteran, nurse, and a survivor. This is a space for sacred witnessing, for stories often carried quietly, and for the people who hold them, for survivors, healers, and witnesses. Here we stand against the silence that isolates and honor the silence that allows us to truly be heard. Some episodes in this season will focus on sexual trauma and forensic realities. Others will explore moral injury, grief, and the cost of caring deeply in a world that can wound. You're invited to listen at your own pace, pause when you need to, and take what serves you and leave the rest. A gentle note before we begin. This podcast includes conversations about trauma and abuse. Please listen with care and honor your well-being. Thank you for being here and witnessing today's conversation. Welcome, witnesses. I am so excited to have you here today for Season 2, Episode 10. Hard to believe that 2 seasons already have gone by. This has been an exhilarating experience, a rewarding experience, just a soul-searching experience, and I have just had such the honor and privilege of listening to so many stories and having so many guests that were special. That includes our guest today. So, what happens when people trained to save everyone else are the ones who need space to heal? Today, we're going to talk with a woman who's helping military women break silence around trauma and reclaim their stories. My guest today's name is Kim. She has served in the United States Army and the Army Reserves as a combat medic, combat nurse, and a flight instructor. She's also recognized as one of the top female athletes in the Army during her service, which is pretty fantastic, I think. Kim is also the host of a podcast called Dog Tag Diaries. This is a space where women who have served in the military can share their stories openly and honestly. The show raises awareness around military trauma and mental health while building supportive community where women can find strength, connection, and encouragement through shared experience. On top of that, she is the CEO of a nonprofit called Reveille Retreat, which offers healing retreats and specifically designed for women in the military community. This creates a space for resilience, self-discovery, growth through a variety of therapeutic and empowering practices. So Kim is somebody who cares deeply about elevating women's voices in this healing space and helping people reconnect with their strength and potential. So it's just fitting that she's here on Season 2 ending because she's somebody who cares deeply about this. And I'm really honored to have her amazing energy here in the studio today. She is courageously taking off the podcast hat today for the first time and opening up about her own journey, which is really weird to be on the other side. So, phew, Kim, this is a big deal. I'm so honored. I'm a fan of your work, and it's really been honoring that you would choose to have this space to share your story. I've personally attended a retreat that was sponsored by Reveille Retreat, and through an encounter at that retreat, I now have a heart horse relationship that I would never had if I didn't go on that retreat. So there's so many things in our story that cross paths that you probably don't even know about. So I'm just so thankful to have you here. I know that the listeners, the witnesses are going to enjoy this conversation. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. So it's really different being on the other side because I think it's like a control factor. I'm the one leading this conversation. And so this is all just coming into fruition right now in my head. But yeah, it's so different. However, because we have so many similarities and because you've been on my podcast and because I've known you before this, I feel very safe with you. And so I love that you do this so organically that we are just going to sit here and we're going to talk and we are going to see what erupts. And I know no matter what, you're here for me and you're here to make me feel safe.
Yeah, it's true. And for those that don't know, I don't have a script or a plan. This is willy-nilly Wild West podcasting. We just get on and start talking. So I really admire you for being willing to be vulnerable to do that. So before we get started, I like to take our witnesses through just a little grounding exercise. And that's for both of us too, so that we can just arrive where we're at and get in our bodies and just be prepared to witness and listen. So if it's safe for you where you're at, close your eyes. If you can't, that's okay. Just take a moment, drop your shoulders, relax your jaw, take a breath in, just exhale slowly, and just be ready to witness. Amazing. All right, here we go. So, first question I have is just so our witnesses can know who you are. Tell us a little bit about how you got in this world, podcasting and doing a nonprofit. Like, this didn't happen by accident.
No, no. So the way I got into this world, like the story origin of all of this, or the origin story of all of this, is I I was living in a fight or flight state, and we could talk more about it, more details, but I was living in a fight or flight state for years. And I finally came to a halt. I ended up having to need foot surgery. And so I was not able to do my 312s in the ER anymore. I wasn't able to run and be outside all day and just s- all those activities that helped keep me grounded. And so I ended up not healing correctly from the first one. So I needed another one. And for one full year, I needed to recover from foot surgery. So I needed to, I found myself in a very vulnerable place where a lot of things started coming up that I didn't even realize were in there because for years I kept myself so busy, so distracted, like most of us do. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, I need to get cerebral now," because usually I was, like, cerebral and physical. Now I needed to just get cerebral, and I was like, "I need to do something. I really need to do something to help myself," and I knew I wasn't alone, so I needed to find an avenue to help myself and to help other military women, and interestingly enough, I bump into this gentleman who's a veteran. And he comes up to me and says, "Hey, we're having a hard time finding women for our retreats. Are you willing to do a all military woman retreat and we'll be your fiscal agent?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is all the things I've been manifesting and thinking about." And he's like, "And I have the perfect woman to do it with you." And that's when I got introduced to the co-founder of Reveille Retreat Project, Dakota.
That's awesome. So, how long were you in the military before you got out?
I joined as a reservist and then went into active duty status. But, and then I went into back into the reserves after our active duty status was over. And so I was in the reserves for about 14 years with a small break in service. And I have about 9 good years.
Yeah, so it's quite a while. So you didn't
Yeah.
do like I just did like a little over 5. So you did
Oh,
quite a chunk in the military before you got out.
yes, but mostly as a reservist. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you got out, you were already a nurse. So you're working 12-hour shifts. Like I get the busyness part. Like I get that because if we're busy, we don't have to look at ourselves. We can go, "Oh, I'm too busy to think about that," or "I'm too busy to carry whatever it is that I'm carrying." So tell
Oh,
me a
yeah.
little bit about how that was for you, discovering that you had to be with yourself and not have these things.
So it was very confusing at first. I was like, you're in this life for like 40 some years and you're just conditioned to live in a certain way. And then it stops. You come to a halt and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't understand what's going on. Like I was starting to have these, um, all these like nightmares from working in 11-1 trauma ER that I never really got to, um, absorb. I absorbed it. I never got to, what's the word I'm looking
You never
for?
released it. You
I never
never
got to
moved it
release.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. Because at the time, so when I went out of active duty and into reserves, I was pregnant with my son. I was a single mom, I was pregnant, and I only had my LPN. And so I'm gonna date myself, but I was only making $9 an hour.
Yeah.
$9 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was working in a nursing home at the time because as a new nurse, that's the only
Yeah.
people that would, they say, "Oh, you need experience." And I was like, "Well, I have experience as like being a student nurse, but I don't have experience in the real world." So we started at a nursing home, and I remember I was just so miserable. I was making $9 an hour. I was pregnant. I was living in an apartment on my own. And I was like, how in the world am I going to do this? And so it really just I really ended up, yeah, keeping myself super busy because I had to work full time. I had to go to school full time. I had to take care of my son. And then I had my military obligations, which was 1 weekend a month and then 2 weeks a year. And sometimes more than that with schools and annual trainings. So I really had no time. And talk about putting yourself in the environment that you grew up in unknowingly. It was just a chaotic childhood going into the military, which is intense and chaotic, and then going into a level 1 trauma ER, which was chaotic and intense. And then raising a son, um, yeah, it was just, and playing both roles, mom and dad. There was just a lot of confusion, and I didn't know how to deal with really any of it. I tried my best, but I look back now and I'm like, "Oh gosh, I wish I had a do-over."
Yeah. I think I think that all the roads we travel lead us right to where we are, right? So, regardless of how it all came out for me, I still feel like maybe, maybe not, I would have still ended up right here. I don't know that, but it sure feels like a do-over in some areas. Like, I was just thinking about this last night. It makes me tear up a little bit when I was thinking about this. All of a sudden, I just had this memory of this particular thing, experience, person that I was encountering, and something that I said, like something that I said to this man. And I haven't thought about that. I mean, I probably never thought about it again after I said it, but I don't know why it popped in my heart last night. And I was like, that was an awful thing to say. Like, it was a terrible thing to say. And it took me down this rabbit trail of thinking about how I used to be and how I used to show up in the world. And I was like, starting to get a little bit like, "Oh, you're a terrible person. This is awful," and I caught myself and I'm like, "Hold on. That was, 15 years ago, and I don't know why I was said that or what I was even thinking, and it's an awful thing to say to someone." And the way that person responded was absolutely more kind than I deserved based on what I was saying, but I was just like sad for that version of myself then, but realize now, like, this is just a barometer for, like, the growth that I've had. So I ended up, like, kinda coming out of that what I normally would have spiraled in, but I was thinking, "Man, I wish I could have a redo because I would have never said that," And I don't know this person, I can't go find them and say anything, but
Yes.
but it gives me some compassion towards the people who maybe, haven't been the kindest to me. I had an experience this week that maybe that's why that came up because somebody was not very kind to me earlier this week, and I had to work through that and, find some compassion for them. And so, I don't know if that's why God brought that to my mind last night or not, but I was definitely like, "I can't believe I would say something so awful to someone's face," and I'm not even gonna tell you what it was, but
Mhm.
but it just made me think like, "Man, we don't get do-overs. Like, we don't get a do-over." So I can
Yeah.
choose to stay in that, and I can't change the past, or I can just move forward and say, "I did the best that I could with the thinking I had at the time, even though that was a pretty crappy thing to do," you know? So I imagine you found yourself in some situations like that as well as you look back. Um,
Oh, yeah, totally. And one of the most beautiful things that someone has told me that I knew way back when was, "Oh my gosh, I don't even recognize you anymore." And I'm like, "Thank goodness.
Such a compliment.
Thank you.
Yes.
All this
Yay.
all this all this therapy and all this work that I've done on
Yes.
myself because I really needed to stop going in circles and stop blaming everyone else, and then finally be like, "Oh, I'm the common denominator. I need to work on me." And so even before we start this, I do wanna put a disclaimer out. Like, I'm not here to blame anyone that was in my journey and or myself anymore. Like, I know we all go through different things. We all come from different families and histories and that shape us in different ways. And so we all carry this generational trauma and hardship. And my intention here is just to share my story, hopefully offer some perspective and understanding, and then, make connections out of it where people are, like, oh yeah, that was me too.
Yeah, that's what this space is for, and I love that you said that you don't blame yourself, and that I think that well, for me, it was harder to not blame myself than other people, like, I mean, through the circle, let's talk about that too, that cycle that you were talking about where you just kinda blame and, um, keep yourself stuck in, like, a victim mindset, and I was doing that for a long time, but I found that once I could release others, I then took it onto myself, and I didn't know at the time that's really what I was doing, and now looking back, I'm like, "Man, I just transferred it from them to myself," and that's when it really got dark and scary. So, if you're open to it, maybe if you think it would help some of our witnesses, maybe share a little bit about what that journey was like for you. What were you processing? What were you going through? Like, what happened that landed you to this place?
Yeah. 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 And so it all starts in childhood. I believe like childhood therapy is huge. And I didn't know about it until I started in 2013. And I was just like, oh my goodness, it all makes sense. And again, my parents did the best they could. And we all have that trauma that was passed on to us. So, but it was tough for me because when my parents divorced, they both kind of went their own direction. And and I understand it now when people get divorced not because they like each other.
Right.
It's usually not amicable. And so
Right.
they really don't want to hang out with one another anymore. That's why they're getting divorced. But you still have these kids that you need to take care of. And that is really difficult. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I was that kid who who was really affected by my parents' divorce and not having them around so much. And this is my story through my lens and what I remember. And then going back and asking my parents about what happened. And they weren't very open to talk about it, which I understand too, because right, that's going to bring up a lot of stuff for them. So I had to lean on my friends that surrounded me at that time in my life, and then another woman who lived next door to really tell me what happened because it was very confusing to me. You're here with your family and then the divorce happens and you really don't see your mom and dad anymore. And we are really just left to our own vices. And you put three teenage girls with no boundaries or um, you can, no, and there was just no set of rules for us to go by. And then at that age, when you're getting your hormones and you're
Oh,
confused to begin with, so then you add that on. And I was just like, oh gosh, I was just this reckless child because I had that road to do all of that. But I didn't have any rules to abide by, which, it just I went on my own journey then. And looking back, I see how much I crave structure now and and discipline. And so going into the military was the best thing that could have happened to me because it was all the things that I didn't have growing up, discipline, structure, people leading you and giving you positive and negative reinforcement. So it helped me learn how to function in the world better. But yeah, so going into being that child of divorced parents was very tough for me. And I didn't know, all I knew is I was getting these feelings inside, like I was getting angry and I was lashing out. And I didn't know how to communicate in a healthy way because I was never taught any of this. So when I got these feelings, I would get angry and I would either get physical with an object, or like I've learned that running was the key for me. Like, just take off, run, keep going, and then until you exhaust yourself. And so I became this amazing athlete from it, but I didn't. It wasn't. It wasn't coming from a place where, like, yeah, I want to be the top athlete, and I want to, end up being like, I- yeah, I want to be. I'm learning now that the reason I did all those things was to keep myself safe and level, and really just like that neutral, bring myself back to that
Yeah.
calm, relaxed state.
Yeah. And when you were forced to kind of take a look at yourself and evaluate that, like, I know for me, the first time I went to therapy, I was like, my childhood has nothing to do with this. I don't need to talk about any of that.
Yeah.
And we find out later that sadly it is. It is. And the reason, and I know now with a little more distance, that the reason that I was saying that was because it wasn't that I didn't think my childhood had nothing to do with it. It was that I didn't think my childhood was that big of a problem, because what I didn't understand is that childhood developmental trauma doesn't necessarily mean that your parents were alcoholics or that you were, being abused in a direct way. It could be lack of attunement, like nobody validated your feelings, or, as a daughter, having a father that maybe didn't attune to you as a man should attune to a daughter. It's like, so then you're left trying to, do you see me? Does anybody see me? Is this, so for me, it led to a lot of striving and performing. And that whole situation, when it kind of came to the front of my mind, I was like, holy crap. And it took me, I realized it had nothing, my problems and the way I was blowing up my relationships and the way that I was performing in my job and everything else had nothing to do with necessarily um, my sexual assaults that I thought were causing me all of these, issues. It was just, I didn't, like you said, I didn't know how to do emotions. I didn't know how to process things. So that's a very unnerving feeling, but you don't even know it until you do. And then it all comes through that nervous system at one time. So you find yourself struggling. So it sounds like in the middle of your struggle, where were you in that journey when Reveille Retreat started? Were you kind of on the tail end of that journey?
Oh,
Well, there's
yeah. I
never
was
really
like,
a tail end, but
I
you know what I
started
mean?
in therapy like 2013, and then Reveille Retreat Project was born in 2023. And so I felt like I was in a good place to be like,
So 10
oh,
years of working.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And you know what? When she started telling me about childhood therapy, I was like, just much like you. I'm like, what? I never heard of this. And I mean, it's so common now, but back in 2013, I think they were just kind of like playing with it. And at least for me, because I went to therapy before that, and we never talked about childhood therapy. And so once I started digging into it and doing research, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. I want to know more. And then when you start learning, instead of blaming, which I did for years, when you start learning that everyone has a story, your parents have a story, their parents have a story. And so they do their best to be aware as well. But again, back then, it really wasn't talked about. And so my heart goes out to them back then, because they've really had to deal with things alone. And now we have all these resources out here. We have nonprofits. We have people going on social media and talking about it, like right over like morning coffee. And it's amazing. And I love it. And I think it's so important to understand your past experiences so you understand why your body's getting triggered, why these emotions are happening. So then you can be like, oh, yeah, I get it. I understand where they're coming from. It's like anything in life. You need to understand why it happened in order to repair it. And
Yeah.
so now something comes up and my heart starts racing. I go into fight or flight. My heart starts racing. My blood pressure is up. I'm breathing quicker. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, okay. I've just been triggered. my mind's trying to keep me safe. I need to go do something where sometimes I dance it out. Sometimes I just sit down right there where I'm at and start breathing. Sometimes I call a friend to talk it through. But just understanding that, oh, yeah, I get it. Now I need to relax myself and take myself to a more calm space. And then I can think clearly again. And I can
Mhm.
talk myself into this was a measure that used to keep you safe. We're not going to use that anymore. We're using these techniques. And eventually, like anything else, it becomes a habit.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier that I want to circle back to. Um, when you said that you started to have nightmares about patients and things. So, for those that aren't really sure, working in a trauma center is no joke. I worked in a level 2. I currently work in a level 2 also, but as an ER nurse, that's a whole different world. So you're seeing and hearing things that the average person doesn't even hear and see on the news. Like, these are things and we go home and just make dinner. Like, we go home and just make dinner and we don't well, I say we. I did not do anything to process that through. I never took advantage of the debrief. So when you said that, it just reminded me like, yes, and now sitting here, I can recall some particular cases that I will never ever forget or forget the sounds of those mothers screaming or, whatever it is. And I'll never ever forget that, but now it doesn't have the emotional charge that it used to. Um, so can you talk a little bit about what that was like for you when those things started to surface, and what did you do to help yourself through that?
Yeah, I did not like it, that's for sure. And you're right, working in a level one trauma for so many years, you just become accustomed to it again because this was, I believe, the second job after the um, nursing home or third job after the nursing home. And this is where I decided to keep my career. And at first, like anything, you're like, oh my gosh, you could feel your nervous system. Like you are on a constant roller coaster. And for
Yeah,
12 hours. So, and if you do shifts right in a row, 3, 4 12-hour shifts, that's the 12-hour shifts that you are boots on the ground or scrubs, scrubs in the hospital, um, there. But you have that drive in, you have the prep work. At least for me, I would ride my bike 20 minutes beforehand just to get ready for the day. And then you come home. So they're like 14, 15-hour days. And so you really don't have a lot of time to process, nor do you want to because you are physically exhausted. Your
right.
body's not meant to stay in a fight or flight for 12 hours. And
No.
working at a level one trauma, that's exactly what you do. There is like a 5 hour wait in the waiting room. You are constantly getting traumas in, some that, yes, live, but most of them are not. And you are seeing some really catastrophic um, sights. The visuals that you are getting, the audit,
Like
the
the
sight
auditory sounds,
that
yes,
you're
everything that
hearing,
you're hearing.
you
Mhm.
said from the moms that just found out that their kids have died, like, it's just gosh, it's just so heart-wrenching, and at the same time, it becomes normal after years and years and years, and then it stops, and you're like, yeah, this doesn't feel good. The nightmares, it doesn't feel good. And you're like, oh gosh, it really takes you right back to that place. And then you start wondering, like, I'm like, I wonder how that person made it through. And your mind just goes and goes. And gosh, I've really had to unpack that with my therapist. And she was very understanding. She was like, "Oh my gosh, work like you went from trauma as a child and continued to put yourself in chaotic situations that resembled that. You went into the military, you went into a level 1 trauma ER, you were a single mom. It was yeah, one after another and an extreme endurance athlete, high
Yeah.
perform and it was exhausting."
Well, I was just gonna say, when you white knuckle to the next thing, and I don't know about you, but I found myself multiple times saying, "When I get through this, then I can deal with that." And then there was never get through this. It was always something else. So, like, the white knuckling is just a constant state. So when I like clench my fists and think about what white knuckling feels like, I mean, it hurts. Like, it hurts, and I'm thinking emotionally just white knuckling for decades. It's no wonder that we landed up being numb and burned out, and I know for you, you had some outlets there. Did you find that those outlets were mostly helpful, or did you find yourself still trying to escape even though you had those outlets? I know for me, like, it led to substances and things like that because the other outlets weren't working anymore. So then it was like, if I can't outrun it, then I'm going to just numb it and not even knowing that really that's what I was doing. So food, alcohol, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and it leads you to get to being real, real stuck. And I'm glad that you mentioned that it's leading from one chaos to another because it's familiar. So I don't know about you, but whenever things started to unpack and I was going through these things, if I had a boring day or something quote unquote normal, I thought something was wrong. I didn't know how to accept just the mundane, which now is I welcome. So
I love
like
that you say that, Val, because you are absolutely right. Like, the same way. I didn't know what was going on at the time, but if there was like that lull, that boredom, which I crave now, it's not boredom. We're supposed to live in that state.
yes.
But if there was that boredom back then, just like you, I was like, oh gosh. And I would unconsciously create this chaos.
Mm,
And I was like, now I know. And don't get me wrong, I still do it because it was years of all of that being ingrained in me and become a conditioned response. That's how I live my life. But now I can at least see it. I'm like, oh, you're putting yourself back in chaos. That's not where we're going anymore. Now we are going to sit here and I crave it. I crave to stay in that state,
me
that
too.
boring, I'm putting quotation mark, but that boring state, that very calm, regulated nervous system state, which I
Yeah.
was so unused to.
Yeah, like, what did that look like? I was like, "I don't know what that would look like." I didn't know that I was in fight or flight all the time. So something that's interesting, I had probably pretty early into my healing journey, um, it's also interesting to say, and the reason I'm backtracking a little bit is because everybody's healing journey looks different. So my healing journey had multiple modalities, different phases, different seasons, different all over. But it wasn't until I got to the nervous system healing that once the more awareness started coming out, like you said, where you could see online, there were people posting videos and there was more brain science coming out and things like that. And it was like, oh, this is what I've been missing. That's what I'm feeling in my body. So I remember having a conversation with my husband about something. I can't even tell you what it is right now, but we had an adult conversation. This was both after we'd both been through Save a Warrior. We had this conversation that was just, and we resolved it. There was no dramatics. It was okay. And I walked away feeling like something's wrong here. Like something's very wrong here. I don't know what's going on. And I remember reaching out to a sister and saying like, we just had this conversation, but why do I feel like there's something missing? Like there should be something else here. And she's like, "Wow, that's normal. That sounds to me like you had an adult conversation and you resolved the issue and there was no drama and you just don't know what to do with that." And I was like, "Well, hot damn. Okay. So this is adulting. All right, I got this." Like it was just so beautiful, but at the same time so unnerving because I was like, "Man, when's the other shoe gonna drop? I feel like this should be like something else should be going on here." And it's just been wild to see over the last few years, the more people I encounter, the more people come on and wanna tell their stories, how different everybody's journey has been, um, and how different things can shape it. A lot of people use humor. I love using humor, but I also use humor to minimize, so I have to be careful when I'm doing that because I can catch myself now and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just very uncomfortable right now, so I'm gonna make this joke." Like, this is not healthy, like but also you can find joy in humor, and it is healthy, like, there has to be a balance. Um, I don't know where I got off on that rabbit trail, but yes.
No, and I want to piggyback on that because it is interesting because when you start learning and being aware and understanding, like, oh, that's my past trauma, and I'm still acting like that because you're still in that teeter totter state where you're like, I'm trying to get over here, but my body and mind keep going back, to the fight or flight. And so I reference, like, it's almost like watching a toddler when they first start walking. You have to watch yourself at all times and be very mindful. And it can be quite exhausting because you're like, oh, wow, this is my old behavior. We're moving over here. And so it really is. And if you're like us who are performing females, we go hard and we're like, okay, we are going to make this better and we are going to become better humans, and not even better humans because we were really amazing humans. It's just that we weren't taught those healthy outlets and how to live in a world in a healthy way. And so yeah, just watching it. But I have to say, I'm so proud of myself and for putting in the work because it is so much easier now. And like I
Yeah.
said, I crave having, like, maybe a disagreement or maybe something happened and being able to have, like, you and your husband, an adult conversation to be like, oh my gosh, this was my part. I'm so sorry because and be able to say where it all came from. And when
Mhm.
you have another human who's willing to do the same, it is just such a beautiful, like, collaboration, and it feels so amazing. And now you just want to stay in those states.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in that chaotic state. In fact, even thinking about anything chaotic anymore, like stepping into a level one trauma ER, it does not feel good for me. I could do like level 3 or level 4, but there is no way I'd be able to step back into a level 1 trauma anymore, or those relationships that I used to get into, or friendships. There is no way. And for a long time I was confused. When I started healing, I was like, is this my trauma, or is this my intuition that I should be listening to? And so now it's getting so much easier to just be like, if it doesn't feel good for you, Kim, you've done enough research, you've done um enough counseling, you've done enough work on yourself that you can trust yourself again. And that, I have to say, that is the most beautiful feeling I've ever had in my life, to be able to trust myself again.
Yeah. I can see it on your face just when you're saying that,
Ooh.
that's a deep, deep truth for you. Yeah. That and I think that's, because our bodies keep the score, and how many times did we go against our gut because we didn't know if we could trust it? And so leaning in and saying like, "Yeah, you've done this already. I don't have to figure it out." Like, yeah, if this doesn't feel good for me. My concern with that when I first started to really heal was I didn't know what codependency was. I didn't know that I was rescuing people. I really thought I was being helpful or whatever. But as I've healed and learned more things, I'm realizing that that chaos was just it was just easier, and my body was familiar with that. And like my daughter and I had a conversation the other day, and she said, "Mom, every time I make plans with this person or I do XYZ," she's like, "I feel it in my chest every time, and I know that this is something's going to happen." And I'm like, "Ah, so I can you let me talk to you about that. Like, let's talk about what that means. Like, you can listen to that because I didn't know I could listen. I had to shove that down." And so to see that my household is healing and we're be able to do these things together has been incredible. Um, but knowing that I can teach my daughters to trust themselves, um, and they surprise me. It makes me want to cry every time I think about it. They surprise me left and right. They say things, and I'm like, "How did you know that?" And they're like, I don't know." Like because it's just been the normal talk around here. So it's not that they went looking for. They're not on TikTok looking up this kind of stuff. That's what mom does. That's not, so for them to just catch it from what's being modeled in the home has been very encouraging for me. But since we're talking a little bit about that part, what was it like for you as a parent, navigating your relationship with your son and healing and all of that stuff? Can we just talk a little bit about? I haven't talked with any guests about this yet, about the parenting. Oh, the parenting that comes with healing and looking at your responsibility in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that has been quite the journey because I had my son when I was young, and I went at 22. And so I was still in that phase where I didn't even understand what was going on. And I went back home so my parents can help while I went to school, while I worked full time, while I fulfilled my military obligation. And my son just went right back into the trauma, the generational trauma that I was in. And it, it was so hard because once I started healing and understanding it, I was trying to implement these new rules, and my family was still on the old rules. And so it caused a lot of conflict and a lot of anger and pain and fear. And just, I mean, there was not a lot of understanding. And we don't come from a place where we talk about things. So it was very difficult to have conversations and explain because it was the way we would communicate was loud, explosive, and it just wasn't healthy. And so watching my son grow up like that was really tough. Um, I look back and I say, gosh, I just wish I would have trusted myself or had the tools to trust myself back then to just raise him on my own. Again, I don't know what would have happened. You
Yeah.
know, I again, we were talking about that in the beginning. You never know the choices that you make. You never know where it's going to take you in life. So maybe something horrible would have happened. I don't know. But what matters to me is that I have healed and learned a whole bunch of healthy behaviors, and now I try and communicate that with him. And I must say he's done a lot of work on his own as well because I just talked to him last week, and just like you were saying where your kids were, like, blowing your mind with what they were saying, he was doing the same thing, and I found that him and I were able to have this conversation that was so constructive and beautiful, and it just warmed my heart. Like you were talking about when your daughter had this feeling in her chest, this was like this warm feeling that came over my chest, and it felt like my heart just grew,
Aw.
like
Aw.
grew 5 times, and I was just so proud to be in that moment. But that was years of uncomfortableness and pain, but that's how we grew up. Again, no, not blaming anyone. That's how we grew up, and that was implemented into all those years of raising him. So
Yeah.
I had to really unpack all that with therapy. I a lot of sessions crying.
Mhm.
And but there were a lot of aha moments that came out of it. And so instead of playing victim, again, you learn where all this is coming from and you make a change.
Yep. And you
So,
have a choice, right? We have agency in our own healing. And that's the
yeah.
biggest theme that I've heard from every guest that's come on this show, is that they've had some kind of agency in choosing to leave the story and just focus on going forward and not repeating that cycle. And it doesn't always go the way we plan, or maybe it takes longer than we think it's going to. And I think Confucius says it like it doesn't matter how long it takes, just keep going, just
Yeah.
keep going. And I still have to remind myself of that, um, especially when things come up and I realize, ooh, maybe that's something that needs to be healed, and I wasn't aware of it before because I don't think I could have handled it before. I needed to do all this other layers first before I could actually get to the real root. And so I'm finding that as time goes on, and every time I sit and have a conversation with somebody, I learn something new about myself as we're talking. And I'm like, this is amazing. Just and that's where the connection comes in, is knowing that other women out there have um, issues. And I know the first ever retreat I ever went to that was outside of a religious organization that was actually like a women's veterans retreat. I That changed my life because I didn't know that I was not alone. And that sounds silly to say now. Like, of course I wasn't alone. But you would have thought, I mean, I had it that way. I had it that way, that I was alone and defective. And this was I was performing so well, and on the outside, I created this prison for myself because I was successful. I struggled through nursing school. I struggled through leadership issues. I struggled through organizational issues within lots of different jobs I had and stuff, and even religious organizations, just different things. Everything had the same theme that kept happening to me, and I was like, "Hold on a second, mayhaps this is me." So I gotta look at this. And now I can say that and laugh about it, but at the time it was so painful to like take a look at myself and say, maybe, maybe it is me. So then without the maturity there, it becomes, well, I must be a piece of shit. I must be, so bad. But then when I went to people and said, I'm really struggling, I think, I was still trying to whitewash it. I was not being fully honest about how much was going on for me, even with my own spouse, even with like, it was the pot was boiling up over and I was like, this is going to explode and it's going to be real messy. And when it did, it was weird because people didn't know what to do with me. They're like, no, not you. Val, that, you have, and it was like people telling me how strong I was. And it would just put me in a rage. Like, don't tell me that because clearly I've been surviving, but nobody could see it. So I went through this period of like, does anybody see me? What is happening? And when I went to that first women veterans retreat, I was seen by 39 other women that didn't know me. And I was like, I've been missing something. And it was that community of vulnerability and honesty. So if you can't be vulnerable, then you can't heal. And it doesn't mean blasting your stuff. Like I'm at a point now where I can be truly vulnerable. I used to think I was vulnerable, but really I was kind of sugarcoating and making myself look good and that things were better than they were. And I was taking bits and pieces of other people's stories that I heard and thinking, yeah, I can apply that to myself. But like it sounded good, but I didn't know how to actually do that work. And so it took a lot to get to that point. And so I guess where I'm going with this is that, now you have Reveille Retreat. So you're working with women. Now we're wounded women. So how do you navigate? Let's talk about this. How do you navigate hard, difficult situations and women that are coming in angry and the world owes them something? And I'm not making them wrong. Please hear this the right way. I'm just saying we got some stuff. And so we show up to these things,
Yeah.
seeing them for who they are and showing them compassion and love. But that is not easy. And sometimes it doesn't translate. Do you ever struggle with that? Or how do you lead as a CEO in an environment like that?
You know what, Val? I have to say, it has been really, there's a lot of times I don't give myself credit. I'm like, oh, it just happened organically. But that's not true. There was a lot of thought that goes into these because I have been in that situation before. I have been those women. I totally understand, like, boy, we need to make this a safe environment. So when these women come to these retreats from different states and different walks of life, but with a similar traumas, like being a military woman in uniform, it's we have to make that grounding invitational ceremony really pure because that's where it's so important to make them feel safe. If they don't feel safe when they get there, that whole retreat's going to be useless. I mean, they may be able to get some, but it's going to be this roller coaster like, "Oh, I'm safe. Oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. This doesn't feel safe." So we really try and do like grounding and invitational ceremonies and this big welcoming when they come. Like, you matter. You're here. Your voice matters. It's important that you're here. You are going to make a difference. We don't know how yet, but you're going to make a difference this weekend in your own life and others.
Yeah.
And so providing that safe space is really important. And then going into the different types of healing modalities, like I think it's really important for us to look at the mental health, neutralize it, and take it into a holistic healing. And I really think that the outdoors have it all for us. We spend so much time inside. The outdoors is our healing space. all of our senses are activated out there, and that cascade of hormone release is just it just happens naturally when you see the neutral colors, when you smell, the pine trees, when you just see dogs frolicking, like all that just happens innately, kind of like when you see a bear and unconsciously your body goes into fight or flight. We're made for that. It's the same thing when you go outside and you see peace. It's just your body naturally saturates yourself with these good feeling hormones. And movement does it as well. So just walking outside, talking with a friend, it's just so therapeutic. So I love the fact that I went through all of this stuff to get to where I am now so I can help lead
Mm,
other women. Because I
I
think you
love
need
that you said that.
to experience it. Yeah. Oh, you do. You need to experience it and to able, in order to be able to lead.
I've
And
never heard anyone say, "I love that I went through all of that." That's just struck me. I've heard people say, and I've said it myself, like, "I'm grateful for what I've went through because it's led me to here," but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, "I love that I went through all of that to get me here." Like, that's
well,
remarkable. That's remarkable for you to be able to say that.
well,
It's just a
it's because of Reveille Retreat Project and all the women that have gone through it. They have taught me so many things just as much as we have taught them. Like, that's how Dog Tag Diaries came about. And, then it was ranked top 10% globally, which means people want to hear these stories. And
yeah,
all they came to do was come and tell their stories. And we were like, oh my gosh, we need to get this out into the
yeah.
world. So, like you said, you don't feel like you're alone. And you
Mm-mm.
can talk to people because I feel like that's the most important thing. Surrounding yourself with a safe, beautiful group of people. And that's what we try to do. Community is really key,
It
and
is.
the thing is safe people, right? Like, that's the key. You need to have
Mhm.
safe people, not the people you're bringing in because of your traumas that you used to surround yourself with. The new types of people, the healthy people, the people that allow you to be vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable or you mess up or you've done something like that doesn't feel good, you can talk to them and they won't judge you.
Yeah, and it's not weaponized against you.
Right.
Um, and
Right.
I think I've gone on a lot of different retreats with a bunch of different organizations. I don't discriminate. I'll go wherever I'm invited. But every one that I've gone on, I've taken away one or two connections with people that I've still been able to maintain. And I've built this network of safe people. And it's been really, really rewarding to take the leap to put myself out there because I know most women, I shouldn't say I know most women, I'll speak for myself, that I had a hard time being with women in groups like that. Because look, we're in the military around a bunch of guys. Let's just face it. Like, that was hard enough being a woman in uniform and dealing with the things that we had to deal with. Um, but also the women tended to be really vicious in the circles that I was in. And I see now that it was just protection. It was just a protective mechanism. I get all that. I'm not making them wrong. I was probably just the same. But coming out and going to a women's retreat or hanging out with I would say I don't really like women. I don't know why I'm going to go do this. And I would go to women's things through church too, and like, I feel like my heart started to soften towards being around women and realizing that we need each other and we need to encourage each other. Um, but that led to a lot of like shifty boundaries for me because I thought, well, I need to welcome all women then, but not everybody's a safe woman. Not everyone needs to know all the things. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn when I started attending these retreats. Like, yeah, not everyone needs to know everything, and also, there are certain types of people that will kinda latch onto you and kinda suck you dry, and they don't mean to, or maybe they do, I don't know, but I had a real hard time with that, like, "Am I being a jerk because I need space from this particular energy or this person?" And I've realized that it's taken me a long time to find those healthy boundaries within these organizations that offer these retreats and stuff. So I ask a lot more questions now. Like, what do you do when there's, an issue, or, do you screen your people? How is this
Yeah.
um a healthy thing for me to go into? And not every answer is a yes. Sometimes maybe that particular program is not for you. So you have to use some discretion there. But um Can we talk about Dog Tag Diaries for a second?
Yes.
Yes. So, I'm kind of fangirling a little bit just because I've listened to your podcast way before I ever wanted to have one, and I have found so much, just, like, strength and encouragement from your guests and from you and just listening and knowing, like, I'm kinda standing on your shoulders, like, you've kinda pioneered the way for women's stories and voices, and I'm so, like, "Ee," about it, but there's been some guests that you've had that I'm like, "I have so many more questions." Like, so do you ever follow up with them and, get, other information after you talk with them too? Like, do you have a process in place for that? And also, how about maybe just tell us how Dog Tag Diaries got started? Because 'Cause you're well over 5,000 downloads now, right?
Hmm.
That's fantastic.
We are in our seventh season, in the
That's
middle of our
crazy.
seventh season. And Val, to start it, I was scared. Like I used to be this go-getter and like when I was working from fear and I didn't know and I was so busy, you just do things, and I was like to the world. I looked very motivated and very well put together. I looked very motivated. I was like, I could do anything. And then, like, once I started healing, I started becoming fearful of things, which was interesting to me. And so I remember when Dakota and I were like, we need to start a podcast. And we were like, wait, what? We never did that before. Like, how do you even, what equipment do you use? What platform are we going to use? How are we going to pay for it? Like, all these questions came up. And I remember telling her that I really wanted to do this. It was just something that I knew had to be done. And sometimes I don't have words to put with it, but I just get this feeling. And so I really, again, now that I follow my intuition and trust myself, I'm just like, oh, when I get that feeling, I'm going to follow it. So I did, but I needed Dakota with me. I was learning that you are so much stronger when you have, like you said, a safe, healthy friendship with someone who just wants to see you succeed and has similar passions. I love that she said yes because she is more, and she'll tell you this, of an introvert. And it was very scary for her, where I am more of this extrovert. And I'm like, I want to do it. There's just like, I'm paralyzed with fear. I'm stuck right here. But if I had Dakota with me, which was really just this beautiful journey. I was like, I could do this. And that's how we started it. And we didn't know. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what, Kim? You have done so many things in your life. There has been so many unfamiliarities. The first season's going to be like trial and error. And so you just sit with that uncomfortableness until you can get past that hump. And now I get so excited to get on because one, oh my gosh, these women are just being sitting there with you and being vulnerable and telling their stories. And you can just see that trauma releasing from them. And then they talk about what they're doing now. And whether it's writing a book or starting a nonprofit or speaking events, it is just so amazing to hear these women and they empower other women. And isn't that what we're put on earth for? To help one another and to continue that cycle. So it has been just beautiful to watch. And like I said, I used to be fearful to go on. I would get like sick before I would go on. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, when's our next podcast?
Yeah, I think I still get a little flutter like, "Okay, I gotta get on with this person," and I don't really have so much of that anymore. I've just really enjoyed it, and do you go back and listen to your episodes or no?
You know what was interesting? I didn't in the beginning. I did not, and now I do. I love listening to them because I was
Yes.
critiquing myself. At first, it
Yes.
was, even though I knew what the mission was, I was still in an unfamiliar area. So I was definitely critiquing myself. And now I don't critique myself. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful collaboration that we are having and all that energy that's getting sent out to the
Mhm.
world and I don't even know what that looks like because the woman, like, after I get off the podcast, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I have a woman that I want to connect you with. And then I'll
Mhm.
connect them and be like, create whatever was meant to be created there
That's
on your
beautiful.
own. So,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
really gorgeous to
yeah,
even think about. Um, I listen to them, but it's taken me some time, and I'm only still in season 2 here, but at first, same thing, I would be messaging saying, "Can you cut this part out? Can you change this? I think I said too much here." And he's just like, "Stop it."
yeah,
So I'm like,
yeah,
"You're right. He's totally right." So now I look forward to listening to him. And sometimes I'm not gonna lie, it's like I don't even remember everything we talked about. And I'm a couple months behind, like we record and it may be a couple months before it comes out. And when I don't listen till it comes out. So then I'm like, "Oh, it's been a few months since we had the conversation." And I usually end up in tears. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of this person and so proud of this conversation." And it's not about me at all, but I'm just like, the thing that came out of that, I'm like so proud of that these people are getting a chance to, even if they don't feel it, like things changed, something shifted when they told their story. And also realizing like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. And that's kind of how my whole life has been. And I'm just winging it. And I had a friend yesterday tell me, I told her something I'm embarking on here soon. And she was like, "You know what? I'm not surprised at all." I'm like, "Yeah, it's kind of true. I just leap and
I
then
would.
it's okay." So it's just been fun because realizing like, I'm just a human having a human experience, and you're just a human having a human experience, and we can talk about all the things. And, if we sound silly or maybe if I say something foolish, that's okay. It is what it is. But realizing that even if nobody listens, if I get one download from an episode, then that one download mattered. Or maybe it just mattered to the guest and they needed a safe space to share it?
Yeah,
So it's not about clicks and downloads and likes, although I mean, that at least gives you a little bit of motivation that what you're doing, because it is hard. There's a lot of time this takes and, money and effort and things. So it's really, I'm so appreciative when somebody gives me their time and wants to sit here because I get excited about coming on and talking about it too. And I'm like, who do I have today? Oh, this person and this person. And I'm constantly like, when it comes out, I send it to my husband. Did you listen yet? He's like, not yet. I don't pester him about it as much as I used to, but um, he's really gotten a lot out of it too. And he's come home crying before, like, "Oh my gosh, this person's story." So
uh,
it's been very impactful for our relationship too, which is really cool. Um,
and I
do
love
you
that
have
you're honoring yourself now. That shows like you're truly honoring who you are to just let all that go and be like, look, I'm just coming on here. This is a platform. This is a platform for women to come to and just have discussion, which is so, so powerful. I mean, the rest of the day, we should have started this at like 6 o'clock in the morning because
Yeah.
the rest of my day is going to be so beautiful. We just set a beautiful intention, beautiful communication. I feel so close to you. I'm going to think about you all day in this
Aw.
lovely podcast that you do. For real. You just set off like that cascade of good feeling hormones. I'm going to start dancing. My favorite song is Even Chair. I feel better when I'm dancing. Like, yeah, this is what you do. This is what the podcasts do for people. So I want
Yes,
you to know that, yeah, yeah,
that's the witnessing part. Like, I know I can hear conversations that other people have and go, "Huh, I didn't have language for that, but now I do." And now, or hearing someone say something, and you're like, "Oh my God, me too. I didn't know how to explain it." And that's the beautiful part for me. And when I play them back and listen and put the show notes together and I work on that part, I'm like, I don't know where this creativity it comes out, but it does. And it comes out. I feel like this is just a creative expression for me.
yeah.
And I do get some feedback that's like, "You should do this and you should do that and you shouldn't do that. And by the way, this sounded a little whatever." And I'm like, thank you for that." But I don't, I know they're meaning to help, but it's just funny because I think in years past I would have taken that very personally. And I
Yeah.
realize now, like, all is well. Like this space is for you. Like it's for you, Kim, sitting across from me right now. Like I feel like we're in the same room. So
I feel like
it's
you make it so comfortable. I really do feel like the space is for me. It feel
good.
you do. You make it
That's
feel
really good.
yeah.
Yeah. Aw, I love that. Um, and since you said that, I'm just gonna say that I am gonna cheer you on in your journey. Yeah.
I wanna steal that for my podcast. That's awesome.
It's really loud and it's long. I had to cut it off. Sorry, you guys. But it's just taking the moments to find some joy in life. And you said you love dancing. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what are some things that you do for yourself now that you hold space and you're on a healing path that has elevated your consciousness a little bit? How do you process things through? Because sometimes we hear heavy things and um, they sit with us. So how do you now, like, what's your process now for you personally to let go of things?
Yeah, I have to say I am so lucky to have found Dakota. Her and I talk about so much, and I feel like it's appropriate because we are the co-founders of something that is beautiful, but yes, can still be very heavy. So I am so grateful that her and I have that connection and that friendship because having somebody to talk about it really helps to like the debriefing, de escalating, it all just helps to make it to know that you know what we're going to continue, we're going to keep going on, this is beautiful, we just have to release it now. So yes, I dance a lot, I sing, I draw, I have more of a creative outlet. I don't tend to go towards exercise as much, just because I used to be so extreme, so I have to be mindful. I do my hour of exercise in the morning, and that's all I get for it. But I love to walk outside. Oh my gosh, I can walk forever. Being in the surrounded by like the beautiful sky and the trees and the mountains and listening to the birds and the smells and then watching the dogs and yeah. So I have a lot of outlets and I'm so proud of myself because they're not like those extreme outlets being done for the wrong reasons. They are they're beautiful expressions of me releasing, and that comes
Yeah.
through so cool, like my drawings and the book I'm writing. Like, it is just so much fun to watch me now, where before it wasn't like that. So it is really fun to watch me.
Oh, I love that. Gosh, now you've said 2 things. You said you love what you've been through and it's fun to watch you. I love that so
It
much.
is fun to watch me.
Yeah, and I feel that. Like I feel the same way about myself and I never thought to say it like that. Actually this morning in my meditation I was I was getting a little squirrely because sometimes, that happens. Not every meditation is ah,
Yeah.
but I was getting a little squirrely and I'm excited about some things coming up and I was like kind of getting like 10 steps ahead of myself. I'm like, hold on, tiny dancer. Come back to what the breath, come back to where you are. And
Mm.
I remember just like for a moment, I kind of caught myself like smiling and chuckling. And I was like, I said to myself, this is kind of fun, like reeling myself back in because I just know that I'm like a retriever, a golden retriever. Like, I gotta go, we gotta do this. And I just kind of pictured that. And I just laughed, like, oh, yeah, no, I need to reel this back in. But it is fun, like when you can get on the other side of all the crappy things and really have joy and peace in the moments, no matter what it is. And sometimes that means releasing things that don't serve you. So I'm really excited to see where your journey takes you. And thank you for taking the time to come on and share with us. If there's one thing you'd like the witnesses to take away to wrap up season 2, what would you say?
Yeah. So for all the witnesses, I would say find yourself that circle of women that you can trust because it is just so unifying and safe. And like I was talking about before, when you can make that safe space, you can really become vulnerable and be who you are which I think is one of the most amazing things in the world when you can really tap in to who you are as a human, because we're all here. We all have beautiful gifts to give to the world. And so finding that gift is so important.
That's perfectly said. You got to find your people.
Mm.
And I have never said this that I can remember, anyways, on any other episode. But ending season 2, I just want to put a call out there. If you know somebody that might benefit from these conversations, please share and just share this podcast with them, and hopefully they'll connect with something and make their life just a little bit brighter. And also, if you want to share your story, it does not have to be beautiful, polished, and I'm on this other side of everything. If you're right in the thick of the spaghetti of it, like, come on, we'll talk about it. Let's just talk about where you are. And I think people need to hear more real conversations like that. It's not always, um, I've been through the struggle and now I'm on the other side. Maybe you're still in the middle of the struggle, but I just want to invite you um, to share this podcast with others. And if you are in a place where you feel like you might be ready to tell your story, give me a holler. I would love to have a conversation and see if it's a fit for us. But you're worthy of being witnessed. And I'm just so thankful that you joined us for season 2 and that Kim kicked the door in for us to close it and just go into the next season, whatever that looks like. So, with that, witnesses, for the last time for season 2, we're going to just take a moment, soak it all in, and we're going to release it. So, take a deep breath and blow it out and hold those palms up. Think about something that you'd like to let go of. Hold it loosely, push those palms up into the air, and let it go. So proud of you. You did it. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you for being here. If this conversation brought up difficult feelings, please take care of yourself in whatever way you need. I welcome you to carry forward what feels steady and release what isn't yours to hold. If additional support would feel helpful, consider reaching out to a trusted friend, a professional, or a resource in your community. Healing is not a straight line, and you do not have to journey this alone. If this space has been meaningful for you, you're welcome to reach out. And if listening quietly is what you need right now, that's enough. You're right where you're supposed to be. Thank you for witnessing with me today. And until next time, remember that you are loved and worthy of being witnessed.